This episode of Nos Arietes is sponsored by Full Pull Wines, a Seattle-based wine retailer and proud sponsor of Nos Arietes since 2011. Full Pull was founded in 2009, is based in Seattle, and is owned and operated by longtime Sounders supporters. They offer the best boutique wines of the world to members of their mailing list, with special focus on their home, the Pacific Northwest.
Hey, this is Christian Roldan.
And Jordan Morris from the Seattle Sounders Football Club.
And you're listening to
This is Nos Arietes. Thanks to Watson's Counter for sponsoring this episode. Located in Ballard, Watson's Counter is your neighborhood specialty coffee shop, brunch spot, and now coffee roaster. Sourcing exclusively high-scoring coffees, Watson's Counter has started their coffee roasting project to showcase amazing coffees grown around the world. Their first featured coffee is the beautifully complex washed Ethiopian Odola. Follow them on Instagram at Watson's Counter to keep up with all the upcoming releases, or check out their website at www.watsonscounter.com. Whether you want to stop by for your daily coffee to go or sit down for delicious Korean-inspired brunch, Watson's Counter has got you covered. Welcome back to another episode of Nos Arietes, sponsored by Full Pull Wines and Watson's Counter. I am Jeremiah O'Shan. Joining me today is coach of the Pacific Division champion, Tacoma Defiance, Wade Wepper. How are you doing, Wade?
I'm great. Our cat is down at my feet, and I'm hoping she doesn't attack me here. She's got her tail up. I'm not sure what's going on.
She's gonna, I don't know. That'll be interesting. It might make for an interesting bit of the podcast. So, so you Defiance, this is back-to-back division champions, right?
Yes. The MLS Next Pro, it's the second year they've existed. So this division's only existed, as a competition for 2 years, but we've won it both years, which is great.
Yeah, and especially for Defiance, who didn't have a history of winning, frankly, prior to your taking over as the head coach during that final season of USL Championship, where you guys just barely missed the playoffs. So it had been a while where Defiance had really struggled for results. Do you chalk that up to your coaching genius, or is there something else at play here?
I hope you think that I'm going to answer that there's something else at play here.
I would have hoped that you said, no, it's my coaching genius.
Okay, yeah, that's just not how I see how the coaching experience works. It's always collaborative. There's a lot of factors that go into success and lack of success, and it's seldom any one person's. Well, I'd say it's never any one person's responsibility in a team setting. So we had a really solid group of players that were put together for that 21 season. And the staff, frankly, is exceptional. We have had multiple Defiant staff members move up to the first team because their performance has been so good, let alone guys, I guess there's been quite a few in my time. The Jackson Reg and Obed Vargas were both members of the 21 team, and they're now consistently starting for the first team, or certainly getting a lot of minutes. So, it's a combination of everything. It's, I do think that what we've got now in Defiance, and we've tried to define it, and I don't know if that's that might be too strong of a word to define, because I don't know that I could give you the definition, but we want to be a team that every game we play, there's a result that matters on the line. And in the 3 years I've been the head coach, that's been the case. We've never been out of the playoffs until literally the last day in 21, when at halftime we were still in it at Phoenix. Difficult place to go back in the day. And I just think that one of the things that if I were to take some pride in is that we've turned the roster over tremendously since that time, since the 21 season. I'm trying to think. I don't think there's Juan Alvarez is still here. He was on the 21 team. Cody Baker came in he was an academy player at the beginning of the year, signed with Defiant. Reed had
Let's see
moved to the first team.
I guess. Oh, I see.
Yeah,
There are
I'm
players
just
that are on the
talking-
first. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Signed second team players. I think Juan Alvarez is the only one left from the 2021 season.
And was he even a signed player? And was he already signed?
Yeah.
Or was he? He was. Okay.
We signed him at the beginning of the year in the winter, and he played. He had 21, 23 appearances as a, what was he, 17-year-old, or turned 17 that year, and he's still with us. But it's hard to have that kind of turnover and still be competitive at any level. And I would just use the LA teams as an example. LA Galaxy were a competitive USL team for many years, difficult to beat, a lot of first team involvement, solid base, signed directly to the second team, and now they're they're second to bottom in our conference. And LAFC, who were Las Vegas Lights, last place in our conference. Real Monarchs, who have had a good USL team, they've finished outside the playoffs the last 2 years. So it's not as easy as maybe we've made it look. And I give a lot of credit to the recruitment department that's identified players like Braudilio Rodrigues, heck, like Sam Adeniran, who we brought in 21 to replace Justin Dillon, really, who had been that scorer for the second team. We had to replace our entire attack this last season. Alfonso Campos, who was a first team player, but he's now at Austin, and Marlon Vargas is now in Colorado, and these guys were so important for us. And we've found players who've not only just fitted in, but they've actually maybe in some ways raised the level. So it's great. Mike Morris, my assistant coach, I can't give him enough credit for the job he does every day at demanding standards be high. I like to think that maybe starts with me, but it doesn't. There's no drop off with him. Both of us expect the most difficult thing every week. The most important thing every week is training. And I know games are the thing that everyone watches and everyone is excited to do, players included, but we train 4 times for every game we play, and the progress that you'll make as a player comes at training far more than in games. You need the games to give you a sense of where you're going and what you're doing and how you're developing, but without the training environment being competitive, at times uncomfortable. And I think that's we want our top talents to be uncomfortable. I don't want Stuart Hawkins to have easy training sessions. Stuart has got a high ceiling, and he needs to play against players that are going to test him every day at training. We've had every day at training, he needs to be tested against people who are faster and bigger and stronger than him. And if he's going to develop and ever be a first team player, it's going to be because of what he does at training that prepares him for competition. And I think that we've done a really good job of creating an environment that is, sometimes unpleasant. We've had broken noses. We've had, we've had things at training that you wouldn't want, but there's a line that if you're not pushing that line, if you're too worried about how much the players can handle, then you'll never find out what they can handle. You wind up underselling them, and we do a good job in that regard. If nothing else, we do a good job in making a very competitive training environment that prepares players to make the jump to the first team field. Whether or not they ever sign is secondary. That's not why if players are playing because they want to make money, they're never going to make it. They have to play because they want to win. They want to compete and fight and scrap. And that's how, and you wind up making money as a result of doing that successfully. But, you can't put the cart before the horse and have any kind of long-term career.
Well, I'm curious if this may be a harsh transition, but I think it might make sense. This year MLS Next Pro instituted a bunch of sort of tweaks to their playoff format. One of them is you are seeded by your point total, but you get to pick your opponent.
Yeah.
What do you like? Is that does that ramp up the competitiveness? Is it purely like a attention grabbing type of thing? Do you like it? What's your philosophy going into this, assuming you have second pick of who you get to play?
Yeah, I don't what I would say is I really have been happy with the move from USL Championship to MLS Next Pro. It is more professional. There's a lot of things about the USL that are more competitive. The environments that you go into are far more hostile. Sacramento on a Saturday night with a full stadium is difficult, and we miss that. We don't get that in our competition. But the level of preparation for all the teams we play, the level of first team involvement. So we're actually playing on the road against teams that are sometimes stacked with first team players. And so for our guys, it's you week to week, the tactical preparation. I mean, there in the USL, it was obvious nobody prepared to play us. They couldn't tell you who our players were, who the key players were.
Interesting.
It's MLS Next Pro has they're using the MLS structure. So we have first team analysts that will assist sometimes in what we're doing. We have our own analysts. We scout opponents. We prepare game plans for every week that are unique. And so what MLS has done with the no ties, every drawn match has to end in a shootout. I really like that. It gives gives the opportunity to add that extra point, which feels like a win. And they've got the timed, like you've got a certain number of seconds to get off the field if you're getting substituted, to cut down on time wasting. All the time wasting stuff, like if a trainer comes on the field, if you're down for 15 seconds, the trainer comes on the field, you got to sit out for 3 minutes. So you're playing a man down for 3 minutes. And guess what? It's cut down dramatically on people faking injuries. Surprise, surprise. You don't want to be down.
Who would have guessed?
Yeah, crazy. So I really think they've done a good job in trying these things out. And who knows if they ever matriculate up into MLS, but I do think that there's much to be said about them. You pick your opponent, choose your adventure, if you will.
There you go. I like that.
The playoff format is, to me, all it does is, and I don't think I'm speaking out of turn. It's just creating bulletin board material, assuming anyone even has.
It almost seems like it's designed to create bulletin board material.
Yeah. So I can't say for certain if we do wind up with the second or third seed, we will get to pick our opponent in at least the first round. And I can't say for certain what we'll do, just because we haven't had that discussion yet. We still have some games to go to finish, but I'm not interested in playing that game. And I would rather, if it might be that there is a matchup that we go, listen, we're just better against that team, and we'd really rather avoid the other team. Or weird way of thinking, if we're, again, I haven't given it the thought. Colorado's the number one seed. They will be the number one seed. Maybe we think there's a matchup that Colorado struggles with, and we start thinking, well, if we don't pick them, that they're, anyway, I just think
so did they get a bye in the first round? Is that how it works?
Yeah. Seven teams make it. The number one seed doesn't play the first round, and then 2 through 7 battle for 3 spots to then move to the semi. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. That was one I did think there was it felt a little more gimmicky than some of the other stuff. I get. I definitely understand the shootouts, the time wasting stuff. That all feels like, hey, maybe this makes sense. And I know there's always been discussion of, wouldn't it be great if teams could pick their opponents. And I've always thought it made, from a competitive standpoint, it feels so forced and like unnecessary. But
I would prefer a perfect world, there being a balanced schedule. You play everybody home and away once, and and then the seeding is true. You really do. But we played these last two games of the season, against Real Monarchs on Friday and against Vancouver on the following Sunday. We are that'll be the third time we've played both of them.
Okay.
Everybody else we've played twice. So, until we get an adequate number of teams, you're going to have an unbalanced schedule, and that's the nature of American sports, I guess.
Other than those very brief periods in MLS, I think there was maybe 2 or 3 seasons in MLS where they had a perfectly balanced schedule, and other than that, the history of MLS has been unbalanced.
Yeah. Yep.
So I wanted to talk to you about a few players, and we may as well start. You had mentioned Sam Adeniran and Braudilio Rodrigues, and they seem like good places to start in terms of your assessments. Adeniran obviously is no longer with the Sounders. He's with St. Louis. Scored his 8th goal last night. What did you see in him, and are you at all surprised by the way that his game has ultimately translated to MLS?
No, I'm not surprised. Sam came to us. Henry Bronner saw him at a combine of some sort, and we had him in for a preseason invite, and we signed him, and he is just one of those things you think that guy is a striker. He's got great athleticism, technically very good, left-footed, but also good in the air, and not a donkey with his right foot. I mean, he's okay with his right foot. And for us, it was just, a question that in 21, it was fascinating because he was a poor defender. And he and I still text occasionally, but I don't think he would be insulted by me saying he was a poor defender. I don't think he was that interested in it. He'd maybe never been asked to defend from the front. And St. Louis is one of those kind of high pressure, in your face, pretty vertical teams. So it's clear he can do it. But for us in the second team, we had this saying for a long time that I created the slogan, but I don't know if I didn't have any help. It was, you don't defend your way into you don't score your way into the first team. You defend your way into the first team. I said that for players in my team, knowing that you could score your way into the first team. You scored 20 goals or whatever, you're probably going to get a first team contract, right? But it was to try and light the fire under them defensively, knowing that if you're a hardworking defender focused on that, and you have the ability to score, then you got a much shorter path to the first team than someone who all they can do is score at the MLS Next Pro or USL level. I mean, there is a gap, right? It's a difference between those two leagues, a big difference, athletically for sure. And Sam, I tell you, in preseason in 21, he was so bad at defending that I didn't even put him on the roster for our first 2 games. Some people don't know that. He didn't start till our 6th game because he just wasn't prepared. Well, he didn't understand that I was being serious, that right. you actually have to defend. And then once he sorted it out and figured it out, he slotted in wonderfully. I mean, he had 13 goals, and we played him actually more on a left wing, right. with a lot of freedom to come inside and an overlapping left back. So, he had a great year, and it's one of those things. The first team, you could look back and in retrospect and say, okay, well, why isn't Sam with the first team? Hebert is a proven MLS goal scorer. Raul, I mean, come on.
Sure.
And Montero adds more than just contributions on the field. I mean, he's a locker room presence. He's that old head that you want around young guys. it was it was probably a numbers game, and I don't for a second think the first team made a mistake. I know that a lot of people would say, well, it's obvious that they made a mistake. It's only obvious in retrospect. And as you look back and you say, well, okay, if this guy had scored 8 goals for our first team, we'd be super excited about him. But who's on the bench, right? Is he going to displace Raul? Is he going to displace Jordan or Christian when he's healthy? Or is he just not getting minutes and he's playing with Tacoma Defiance? And I think that nobody wanted that reality for him. He's not old, he's 25, but he turns 25 on September 30th. And I know that. I don't memorize players' birthdays. He shares a birthday with my wife. So just like Obed Vargas is August 5th. That's our anniversary. So yeah. But Sam's going to be 25 in a couple weeks, and he's got to play. He's got to play. And yeah, it would be great if he were scoring for Seattle, but I just think in the long term, I don't think that's how rosters are constructed. You don't cast aside a veteran just to sign a younger guy unless there is unequivocal evidence that that's the right call. And I don't know that evidence was unequivocal. And, I love the guy. Sam is a great dude, just like forget about the goal scoring and stuff. He's a really, really nice guy. We had no issues with him at all. I'm so happy for him. And it's the job of Defiance is to produce first team players. And we want it to be for the Sounders. But I look at Sam Rogers and I take just a huge source of pride. Jesse Daly was a second team player. He's playing in the Canadian Premier League. Even at playing first team in the USL, like Villanueva and Serrano, and these guys are competing at a good level, and they've come through our system, and we're really, really excited for them. And they're not all going to be Sounders, and I'm over that. It's not an ego thing. I just want to make sure that if they sign with us, they can move on and have some success somewhere else.
Well, and it seems like Braudilio Rodrigues is a player who could potentially fit into a similar sort of story. He's, as you know, but as our readers may or listeners may or may not know, he was drafted by New York City FC. He came to the Defiance on an MLS Next Pro contract, but if he was to go to MLS, the Sounders would have to work out a deal if they wanted to bring him in. I don't know what his exact situation is, but he's having an amazing season. Scored another goal last night. Another well-taken goal. He's got 13 goals, I think 4 assists. He's going to probably end the season, I would think, as I guess it depends. He needs one more goal, right, to set the team record?
Yeah, I think so. I'd have to confirm that. Fawns might have got 14 last year, but yeah.
I mean, he in any case, he's been a really fun player to watch. I don't think anyone watches this player and thinks like he doesn't have the abilities to play professional high-level professional soccer. But what do you make of his game? Where do you see his future? How do you think he'll translate?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think that the thing that we've seen with Braudilio is that he is a professional. Another thing that I say, and the academy kids get sick of hearing it, maybe, but that you don't. Like I asked them the question, when do you think you become a professional? And some of them will answer, well, when I sign a contract. And that's not the right answer. The right answer is when you behave and play like one. You will never get the contract if you don't have the behaviors of a pro and on and off the field. And, last week I came in on a Defiance off day to do some work with our academy. And we're in the stadium at Starfire, and I turned my head, and walking into the stadium is Braudilio, and he's there to get a bag of balls because he wants to work on something. He doesn't have to be in. He's playing. He's our leader in minutes, and games started and games played, and he's in. He understands that you come early, you stay late. You don't count the hours. You do what you need to do every day to prepare for the next day. And that's kind of the starting point. He has gotten physically stronger. The performance plan that we have in place, has has improved his overall physical profile. He's hitting more meters per second, larger doses of high speed running per game, more total distance. He's doing all of these things as a result of playing the longest season he's ever played as a whether it's in college or even as a kid. We're really pushing him, and we've yet to break him. We've pushed him to a point, and he's still going, So he's such an important part of our group. And for those who haven't seen him play, but maybe have heard his name, he can play with both feet. He's tall, but he's not like a big power like classic 9. He plays in pockets. He likes to be on a wing. He likes to combine with others. He's, I think, our leader in assists. Rothrock might be right there with him.
Yeah.
And he takes goals with both feet and with his head. The goal he scored on Sunday against San Jose was a really well taken, and he had just missed one earlier with his head. So I think he is. I think he's an MLS level player for sure. His age is another thing. He's 24.
He's an international.
He's an international. So do you want your internationals to be, the young DP type? They can't all be. You don't get that many of them. So, would he slot in to the Sounders? I mean, he has trained with our first team. They certainly know who he is. They like him. It's not a question for this year. It's a question for, probably the off season of,
right.
Does he fit in to the future plan? Craig Weibel has got quite the job, because I haven't seen it for certain, but I think there's a lot of people out of contract at the end of the year. A lot of contract discussions, a lot of options.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're over half the roster actually is either up for an option or out of contract at the end of the year.
That's a big number.
That is a big number. It's a big number.
Yeah.
And over half the salary cap, the roster. Not that I don't need to get into this with you, but yes, there's a lot of flexibility this offseason.
Yeah. So it's, does he fit into those plans in the future? Maybe, but that's not really for me to say. It's like our job is every day just to try and get them a little closer, to fill in the gaps of what might be missing in a guy's game. I think Braudilio, when he came in, was not similar to Sam. It was not defend first.
Right.
But like Sam, he has embraced it, and we're better with him on the field in all phases of play. And he's just been a real joy. Some of the goals he scored have been, the sort like the Birdcamp goal against Newcastle all those years ago, where he goes around the Greek center back, hits it with his left, spins to the right. Like how did that happen? And there have been a couple of those where we on the bench look at each other. Did we just see that? Yeah,
he definitely doesn't. I was gonna say he doesn't seem to have a type of goal. He just scores a lot. He seems to find new ways to score. It's not like he's lining up headers or scoring. I mean, he does have some penalties, but he's just the thing that struck me is just the variety of his arsenal, sort of that he's just knows how to find the back of the net.
Yeah, and not a lot of penalties because AB I think has 4 or 5.
Yeah,
we've scored 8. We've scored 8 penalties this year. AB has 4 or 5. Hal Uteritz has at least 1. So, he's got a couple of them, but most of his goals are legitimate in the run of play. And yeah, he's not a big, mean guy. He ghosts and he's a shadow, and his movement. I use the analogy that, there are Formula One cars and NASCARs, right? And he has got multiple gears in the train. He's not just foot to the floor. He can slow it down and speed it up. And he's a Jamie Moyer fastball for you old Mariner fans.
I like that one. Thanks for listening to the first part of this interview. As you've hopefully heard by now, we are now part of the primarily reader-supported PNW Soccer Media family that also includes Sounder at Heart and Ride of the Valkyries. To support that effort, there's an extended cut of this interview that's also available but only to our paid subscribers. If you'd like to become one of them, plans start at the low price of $19 a year, which gets you access to all of the content of not only this podcast, but also everything we write on Sounder at Heart. That's the price of like 2 cups of coffee in Seattle. I dare you to find a better value. But we get it. Some of you are on a budget and simply can't afford to pay for this wonderful content. Don't worry, we still have you covered and we'll continue pumping out free articles and podcasts just like we did before.